Shalom everyone. Today we're going to be discussing the Torah and the Noahide claim by Orthodox Judaism. Does it have any support in Torah? This video is dedicated to a dear friend of mine. You know who you are. Sorry it took so long to make this video. Let's go to the Torah and see if it speaks about second-class citizens or a secondary role for the Gentiles or the nations. The Noahide code. What is clear in Torah as far as the strangers or non-Israelites or non-Jews go? What does the Torah teach? Let's go right at it. I hope that this is helpful. I hope that this will inspire you to become more than a Noahide and not accept this second-class citizen ticket that is not biblical. It is not in the Torah. It is used only in out-of-context or very obscure passages. Let's go straight to the Torah. Shemot, Exodus chapter 12, verse 49. The same Torah is for the natural, meaning the Israelite, and for the stranger who sojourns among you. You see? Bamidbar, Numbers chapter 15, verse 16. The same Torah shall be for you and for the stranger who sojourns among you. Vayikra, Leviticus chapter 1, verse 22. The same Torah is for you, so also to the alien and for the native. For I am Yehovah your Elohim. Meaning that's who's speaking these words. It's God Elohim Yehovah. So if you're going to argue with this video in my case, in my teachings, you're going against the Torah and the words of Elohim. Here we go again. Bamidbar, Numbers chapter 15, verse 15. One ordinance shall be for you of the congregation and for the stranger that sojourns with you. A perpetual statute throughout your generations, not just at the time of Moses at Mount Sinai, but in the future generations as well. As you are, meaning in your position, as you are, so shall the stranger be before Yehovah Elohim. Bamidbar, Numbers chapter 15, verse 29. For the natural children of Israel, and for the strangers that sojourneth among them, is the same Torah. Bamidbar, Numbers chapter 9, verse 14. And when the pilgrimage stranger among you, they shall keep the Passover to Yehovah, according to the statute of the Passover and according to his right. Meaning it's his right to keep the Torah and to be part of Israel, to participate, to celebrate. One ordinance shall be for you, meaning Israel, and for the stranger and for the native of the land. Vayikra, Leviticus chapter 16, verse 29. This shall be a statute forever, le'olam. In the 7th month, the 10th of the month, you shall afflict your souls and shall not do any work, nor the natural, nor the stranger who sojourns among you. Numbers chapter 15, verse 14. When also dwelleth with some outlandish, meaning when you dwell with non-Jews or non-Israelites or strangers among you, that is in the midst of you throughout your generations, you will present a burnt offering of sweet fragrance to Yehovah. As you do, so shall he. Leviticus chapter 18, verse 26. You shall therefore keep my statutes and my judgments, and shall do any of these abominations. You shall not do any of these abominations. Neither the natural Israelite, nor the stranger who sojourns among you. Again, it's like beating a dead horse. God is saying, this is his commandments. This is his declaration to all of Israel. There is no separation. There is no second-class citizens. What about justice? Is it equal for the Israelite as well as the stranger? What does the Torah teach? Again, Deuteronomy chapter 1, verse 16. And at the same time I charge your judges, saying, hear the causes between your brethren, and judge righteously between every man and his brother and the stranger that is with him. Not just an Israelite, but the stranger, non-Israelite as well. Devarim, Deuteronomy chapter 1, verse 17. Do not pervert the judgment of a stranger or the fatherless, nor take a pledge or make a pledge for a widow's clothing. It's wrong. Do not wrong the strangers, the non-Israelites, the widows, the orphans. Again, do not mistreat them. I hope you're listening, any Hebrew Israelites. This is the Torah. This is why you are not welcome, because you do not keep this commandment, very sacred commandment. You want to separate yourselves from all others. This is the Torah. Leviticus chapter 19, verse 33. And if the stranger sojourn with you in your land, do not mistreat him. Again, these are the words of Elohim, Yehovah. Are the penalties also the same? Differentiating between Israelite and non-Israelite. Is there a difference? Numbers chapter 15, verse 30. But the person who does anything presumptuously, whether natural or strangers, to Yehovah, that person shall be cut off from among his people, meaning Israel as well. Numbers chapter 19, verse 10. And when he takes the ashes of the heifer, he shall wash his clothes and be unclean until the evening. It shall be a statute forever to the children of Israel and to the stranger who sojourns among them. Leviticus chapter 1, verse 16. And whoever blasphemes the name of Yehovah shall surely die. All the congregation shall certainly stone him. So too the stranger as well as the natural Israelite. Blaspheming the name of Yehovah, he shall be killed. Leviticus chapter 17, verse 10. And any man of Israel or of the strangers that sojourns among him, anyone who eats the blood, against that soul shall I set my face and cut him off from his people. What about the Sabbath? Now the Orthodox say the Sabbath is for Israel, strangers and non-Jews, or those who follow their way of becoming a Noahide cannot keep the Sabbath. But again, this is not Torah. This is man-made rules. Devarim, Deuteronomy chapter 5, verse 14. But the seventh day is a Sabbath of Yehovah your Elohim. You shall not do any work on it. You, nor your son, nor your daughter, nor your manservant, nor your maidservant, nor your ox, nor your ass, nor any of your cattle, nor the strangers that is within your doors or among you as well. What about Shavuot? Is it just for Israel or for those who want to join Israel as well? Do you tell them to become a Noahide? Let's see what the Torah says again. Devarim, Deuteronomy chapter 27, verse 11. And you shall rejoice before Yehovah your Elohim, you and your son and your daughter and your manservant and your maidservant and the Levite that is within your gates and the outsider and the fatherless and the widow who are in your midst, in the place which Yehovah your Elohim chooses to place his name to dwell. Sukkot. Devarim, Deuteronomy chapter 16, verse 14. And in your feasts you shall rejoice, you and your son and your daughter and your manservant and your maidservant and the Levite and the strangers and the fatherless and the widows that are within your gates or part of the community. There is no separation. There is no second-class citizens. This is not biblical. This is not Torah. Devarim, Deuteronomy chapter 31, verse 12. Gather the people together, the men, the women, the children, and the strangers that are within your gates, that they may hear and learn to fear Yehovah your Elohim, and observe and to do all the words of this Torah. What about Passover? Exodus chapter 12, verse 19. 7 days shall there be no leaven found in your houses, for whoever eats leavened bread, that soul shall be cut off from the congregation of Israel. So too the strangers or the aliens that are natives, can they participate in the sacrifice of Pesach? Exodus chapter 12, verse 43. And he, meaning God, said to Moses and Aaron, "This is the Eastern ordinance. No child stranger shall eat of it." But now, the solution. In verse 48. "But if the stranger among you will keep the Passover to Yehovah, every man shall be circumcised." Meaning, if the stranger or the non-Jew or the Israelite wants to be part of the covenant, he must be circumcised. That is the ordinance of the non-Jew or the non-Israelite. That is what he's going to do. Must circumcise himself to keep the Passover. Is the Torah only to be taught to Israelites or the Jewish people? Or is it also for non-Israelites, non-Jews as well? You know, the Orthodox teach that they cannot teach a non-Jew. You have to be completely Jewish. Deuteronomy chapter 31, verse 12. "Gather the people, the men, the women, the boys, and the strangers that are within your gates. They may hear and learn to fear Yehovah your Elohim." Again, I read the verse to tell you that everyone is welcome to hear this, not just Israel. Deuteronomy chapter 4, verse 2. For those who want to say that I'm wrong in teaching these teachings, I'm reading from the Torah. It says, "Do not add to the words which I command, nor take away from it, that you may keep the commandments of Yehovah your Elohim, which I command you today." Deuteronomy chapter 31, verse 1. 13, verse 1, excuse me. "All that I command you must observe and do not add thereof nor diminish. Whosoever perverts this Torah is damned." Period. Deuteronomy chapter 27, verse 19. "Cursed be he that perverts the judgment of the alien," or the stranger, meaning the ordinance I gave to the strangers as well, "the orphans or the widows, and all the people shall say Amen." Meaning, if you're an Israelite, if you are of the Jewish people, you must agree to the terms, because this is the Torah. Isaiah 56. I suggest you read it when you get a chance. It says there, in the first couple verses, verse 3, "Let the strangers not say," let them not say, "Surely Yehovah has separated me from his people." And it goes on to say, if the stranger who loves the name of God, who grabs hold of the covenant, who keeps the Sabbath, and loves Yehovah, he shall be welcome into my house of prayer, meaning in the end of days. For my house shall be a house of prayer to all peoples. Isaiah chapter 2, the end of days. It speaks about all the nations coming together. That's exactly what it says. Isaiah chapter 2, verses 2 through 4. "Now it will come to pass that in the last days, the mountain of the house of Yehovah will be established as the holy place of the mountains, and will be raised above the hills. And all the nations will go to it. And many peoples will come and say, Come, let us go up to the mountain of Yehovah, to the house of the God of Jacob, that he may teach us all his ways, that we may walk in his paths. For from the Torah shall go forth from Zion, and the word of Yehovah from Jerusalem." There are many teachers among the Orthodox community that say that perhaps in the Messianic age, that people who do not understand Judaism will become Noachides or join Israel. But I just read to you that in the book of Isaiah, it says very clearly that nobody will become Noachides. We saw in the Torah that the Noahide nonsense is not there. What is clear and consistent is that all are welcome to Israel. You must be circumcised and keep the Torah, love the name of Yehovah, which Orthodox Jews do not do. They do not keep the name of Yehovah. So it's up to you. Either you want to follow the written Torah, which is very clear and consistent, or do you want to follow the words of man? Shalom.